Welcome back to our Winterberry project. We've got updates for you, and we've got all the foundation forms have been stripped and pulled off site. So now we can kind of give you guys a true feel for the size of the basement, how tall the walls are, give you a walkthrough of our last minute vault room addition. Actually, let's head there first. And I guess you guys have probably already realized, kind of a fan of these because I want one in my own house. So normally this area would be filled, it wouldn't be empty. When you would excavate for a foundation, you would leave all of the virgin dirt here, and then you would just backfill a little bit with sand. But since we had to excavate all the way down here and start our stone, we were gonna have to pay to fill this entire place with sand. So we were gonna bring in about 110 yards of sand to fill this. So kind of on a whim, as we were forming the foundation, I decided, let's throw a door in and let's make this a vault. Could be an awesome wine cellar. It could be a small man cave. Because you've got, if you were gonna use it as a vault room and you were a gun person, you can set up a whole loading station here, and you can do wall racks kind of all the way throughout. Or if you're a wine connoisseur, you've got 240 square foot of 12 foot tall to hang wine racks on. So when we finish this, we won't have the full 12 feet available to us. We're gonna have to frame, probably lose about 10 inches of headroom here. So we're gonna frame the deck that's gonna have to carry the concrete load on top of us, and we'll end up spray foaming that whole deck underneath and sheathing it off on top. So we'll probably end up, we'll call it 11 foot in here. I think 11 foot's plenty for a spare room that you weren't planning on having. And we'll run, full electrical in here. We'll core drill through the wall to bring in HVAC, so it'll be a climate controlled room. And if somebody was, we're not gonna finish this off as a space, we're gonna leave it since it's a spec house. If somebody comes along during the process, buys it, and says, all right, I wanna do a wine room in here, we will actually create its own climate control zone separate from the whole rest of the house. That way you can keep it exactly how you want it for your wine. They decide they want a vault room, we would do a vault, we'd actually have a vault door manufactured to fit the concrete opening, and we would bore into the concrete for the latch system. Doesn't get much more secure than that. Down here, out in the main area of the basement, this gives you kind of an idea of where our height's at. Our floor will be 4 inches above the footing. So, I mean, it's huge. And of course, our framing down here, we don't frame down, we frame up. So we won't lose any headroom down here. We've got, since you guys know, we've still got some more stone to bring out. What we had to do for the load-bearing columns is use, a 36-inch sonotube, and when they do the walls, they pour these up to floor level. That way, when we put the columns in, we've got a load-bearing base that transfers down to the footing. And this will give you perspective for how much fill we'll still bring in here. Basement floor will be about right here. So we've got, we'll call it 3.5 feet left of sand. I'll probably do sand in the back corner here, but we're gonna stick with the stone for the rest of the area. Sorry, we're gonna move out of the way. We're doing our waterproofing right now as we speak, and we do not wanna be sprayed with that stuff. It would not be too fantastic. So kind of a general idea layout for the basement. On this wing over here, we are doing a second, actually in this house is a third master suite. Since there's a walkout, if you've got parents that are elderly that are gonna move in and you want them to have their own area to themselves, this is gonna be perfect. It's gonna frame off from about this kickoff this way. Master bedroom is gonna be in this area here. Then we've got a whole master ensuite that runs back to the wall through here. Big walk-in closet, and then that kind of takes up this side of the house for that additional suite. Once we're on this side of the wall, everything all the way back to that side of the house is going to be wide open space. So on the wall here that frames in the master suite, we're going to have a fireplace built in here. This whole area is going to just be open entertaining. And then when we get back to this side, we've got a huge wet bar going in. We just finished cabinet design this past Saturday with Vesta in Chicago, and they have actually made it bigger than we were planning on. We did a big U-channel bar design. So we're gonna have 5 seats on this portion of the bar, and then four seats going back towards the wall. We'll have cabinets on the wall, and we'll have the built-in appliances for the whole bar here, shelving up here, and then the bar opens up, that U shape opens up to this kind of what's going to be a general sitting area. And then we have 6-foot tall windows in this wall here, back there. We've got an 8-foot sliding glass door here. Instead of doing your standard height, we figure since we've got these huge tall ceilings down here, it would kind of dwarf a normal size slider. So do big 8-foot, tons of daylight back here, because we're going to continue those 6-foot windows in this wall here and in this wall here as well. So it's going to feel like a great open entertaining space. Great views of the woods behind us, where there will never be any houses. There will never be a house to that side because it's all conservancy area. So our nearest neighbor is up over that way. It's kind of nice back here. All right, so now that we're outside of the basement, other side of the foundation, one thing I forgot to tell you guys, this whole area here, where that 8-foot slider walks out to, this is gonna be covered. We'll have a patio upstairs, a porch upstairs that we walk out to. So down here, if you wanna entertain and you don't have the best weather, you're gonna be out of the weather here. And that's what these two big piers, one here and one here, these are gonna carry the load for the patio upstairs. And then above that is going to be a roof structure as well. So when you walk out of the main level, you've got a covered patio. And when we walk out of the lower level, we've got that same covered entertaining area that's just gonna kind of open up out here. And we're still working on design for what we're gonna do in the backyard here. We might do a paver setup with a half moon and a built-in fire pit, but we kind of want to see how grade works out, how the yard works before we start trying to work on design for that. So now we're back on the, we'll call it the front side yard of the Winterberry project, and you guys get to actually catch a portion of it in process. So right now we're doing what's called waterproofing. So concrete is porous. With water pushed up against it, it will eventually make its way through. So what we do is we spray a membrane on the outside of the foundation everywhere there's going to be living space, and that prevents the water from working its way through. So that's what these guys are doing. They're spraying the side of the foundation, and you'll see that line as it comes down. That's going to be our grade for what we're going to fill to with dirt. And then since you're not going to have anything touching the foundation above it, so you don't have to worry about that water coming through. So as we walk through, I'll show you kind of what the first step of it is. Now I'm not going to hop down there because I won't get out, but everywhere where you see a little black square, that's where if you've watched the videos of our forms and the rebar, you see those little metal brackets that go between the forms that the rebar sits on top of. Those are the brackets as they stick through the form. You break the ends off, and then they make sure that they put a thicker coat on those, since those actually protrude through the wall entirely. So we want to make sure those are 100% covered. Once they've got those covered, that's when they start that spraying process that we showed you over there. Now you'll notice that once we move around this corner into this area, we don't have that same process going on. That is our garage space, so there's no need to waterproof the garage. Since we've got drain tile, any water that gets through and works its way down will work its way out. What they will do, you get a little bit of a high ground here, is you'll see even though it's inside of the garage, you've got that same pattern starting. You've got the squares that have already had the coating put on it, and then they're going to climb inside and they're going to spray that whole wall with that same waterproofing membrane. Reason for that, that wall is living space on the other side. So if you have groundwater that manages to make its way to that wall, you just want to make sure you've got that barrier so it can't get through to your basement. Especially bad if you get water through into a finished basement, which we're going to be finishing the basement here as part of the project. So we want to do everything to make sure we don't ever have water issues. And then same thing, you know, we're around the side of the garage here, so we're not worried about water in this spot. And as soon as we wrap the corner back into the living area, you'll see same thing. They've already come through and they've put the thick membrane on all of the brackets that are protruding through the wall. And they'll come back and you've got this orange line. So the guys need to know where to stop spraying. So you snap a chalk line that follows grade down, and then they'll just spray up to that and they'll follow that line down. And you know, we kind of quickly mentioned drain tile while we were in the front of the project. This is drain tile. So it follows the whole footing of the foundation all the way around, all the way up, and this will end up getting completely buried after waterproofing. The waterproofing guys will come through, they'll finish this today, and we'll let it cure until tomorrow. Then the concrete guys come back out, they lay this the rest of the way, and they'll come through here and they'll actually bring more stone in, and they'll bring the stone up to the foundation wall, completely covering the footing and making contact with that waterproofing membrane. If we skip that process, the county inspector will give us a nice red tag and tell us to come back and redo it. And then that drain tile, it runs the entire perimeter of the house. And you probably wonder why there's no black marks on this. This again is going to end up getting filled up to here because that's going to be our foundation floor. So you don't have to waterproof anything that's below the foundation floor level, because that's what your sump pump's there for. All that water is going to make its way to the sump pit, get pumped out, push off site. And I've mentioned before, here I don't think we'll ever have the sump pit run, because it being the lowest spot of the house, we're still on 5 or 6 foot of stone here, which is going to drain water incredibly fast.